Welcome to Gnosis, my podcast where I talk about how we know what we know. And today's guest is probably most famous for being an NCAA video game, for being that badass player that you always want to pick. He's also been a personal trainer of mine to help me get ready for competition. His name is Herman Demmink. Did I pronounce it correctly?
It's Demmink.
Demmink.
My parents always say, like, instead of give me them ink pens, it's give me Demmink pens. So that's kind of the easiest way to go about it.
You know, it's I'm wearing my super stylish cheater readers today. So I'm going to forgive myself for not pronouncing your last name correctly, but I think it's a fine last name. Why don't you give us a little bit of history about yourself? I kind of covered some random facts, but who are you and what do you do?
So that's a loaded question. Currently, I am a married husband with two kids. My wife and I are Blair, and we're about to celebrate our 9th wedding anniversary. Mm-hmm. And our kids are 6 and 5, soon to be 7 and 5. We live in Knoxville, Tennessee, and kind of like, what do I do? So, you know, I train athletes. We own 3D performance training. But also for the last 6-7 years, also been in medical sales. I currently work for Johnson & Johnson in ophthalmology and cataract.
Okay.
So the majority of my day is spent either in clinics or in the operating room, assisting surgeons and selling new technologies and supporting doctors, you know, if there's a hiccup, if there's something going on, and making sure that the doctors that already know how to do what they do, but as technology evolves, you keep them updated, keep them educated, and help make their lives a little bit easier with the new technologies.
So, you know, just so that I can understand, so what you do in the medical field is that you're there as a resource to be an expert of the device that the doctor's using, because the doctor is an expert on the human body and the surgery process. Is that correct?
That's correct. So, and there are different types of medical sales reps. So you can be in pharmaceuticals, which is drug related. You can be in over-the-counter medications that you can just go to CVS, Walgreens, et cetera. So what I deal with is they're all surgical goods, if however you want to look at it. So that includes capital, and capital just means like large pieces of equipment. And then you can have disposable pieces, which are either the implants that might be used for the patient, that are actually implanted into the patient, or they could be disposable pieces that might be used case after case after case with the large equipment that may be purchased or rented by the hospitals or surgery centers, et cetera. And then what I try and do is take both of those pieces, and then my role is called account executive. So really then what I do is help build business programs around utilizing both the capital and the disposable to help give the best patient outcome possible while helping businesses do what they do, and that's try and grow.
So, you know, having been in a spinal surgery and a number of surgeries myself as an observer, thankfully not as a person in need, you know, you kind of stand by the side of the surgeon and kind of, if they have a question about how something's going or something like that, since you're up on all the literature, you would then step in and answer that question, but it's not something that you're not really affecting what the surgeon's doing other than giving them information. Is that a good understanding?
Totally correct. That's totally correct. As a way to limit liability, I never have any patient, like I never will touch the patient or touch the sterile field or be involved. Right. I'm just there to support and answer questions and educate and make sure that everyone within the room understands the ultimate goal and how to utilize whatever product it is that I'm representing.
Got it. One of the questions I always had about that is, are surgeons allowed to be owners of surgery supply companies or any of that kind of stuff?
So that may be a question that I don't know the ins and the outs of.
Right.
Now, what I do know is that there are certain surgeons that can be paid consultants for larger medical device companies. But when that happens, there has to be a conflict of interest form, everything that's filed and taken care of, and then also disclosed to the public or anybody else that would need to be notified, so that they realize that if they are being paid for their consultation to these larger companies, and if there is any type of monetary or anything of value exchange, that it's accurately documented so that there's no legal interference or there's no other problems.
Got it. So that's some very technical stuff. I kind of want to get into some more fun stuff, but what is it that you love about what you're doing there, and how does that tie into the other things that you are about? I mean, besides paying for family, but I mean, like the other business that you run, your personal commitment to exercise and whatnot.
Of course. So this may then kind of go back to the original question that you asked, and that's, who am I, kind of background, where did I come from, what did I do, all of these things leading in. So I was born in the Carolinas, but really I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. So I went to Clover Hill High School in Midlothian, Virginia. Played every mainstream sport you can imagine minus hockey and lacrosse. So from football, baseball, basketball, swimming, diving, gymnastics, golf, indoor, outdoor track, men's volleyball, kind of diving, like you name it. I at least had some competitive team that I would play on at some stage from 5 to 18. But when it really came down to it, I ended up choosing to play baseball in college.
Got it.
So growing up in Richmond, I had a couple different opportunities, but ultimately I chose to go to Clemson. So I did my undergraduate at Clemson, which is where I played baseball, 2003 through 2006. Finished in the College World Series in 2006, which was amazing. We were the number one team in the country for 9 straight weeks. We were the number one team by ESPN, the number one team in the country. But no, we didn't win the national championship. Just kind of one of those things. But it was an amazing experience. And in school, I wanted to end up pursuing medicine after school, but I also got an amazing opportunity to pursue a professional athletic career. So I was drafted by the Philadelphia Phillies in 2006. And knowing that was a possibility, my senior year, I ended up taking 31 economics hours. So instead of finishing my undergraduate degree officially in biology, I ended up finishing my undergraduate degree in economics, and it gave me a solid business foundation, and went on to go play some professional athletics for 4 years. But during that 4-year span of time, while I was still playing, I was really, really interested in sport performance. I had gotten my first training certification after my freshman year of college. So when I would go play in the Cape Cod Baseball League or various other summer leagues, I would train people in the mornings. Right. And if I didn't have a client, then I got to train myself, while all the rest of my teammates had to go bag groceries or cut grass or teach camps or do things in the midsummer heat. And I got to stay in the air conditioning all day. So I got to start building this set of experiences and start working on training certifications early on.
Right.
So by the time I had graduated, I already had my CSCS, which is a certification accredited by the National Strength and Conditioning Association. It's kind of considered the gold standard in strength and conditioning. And while I was playing with the Phillies after I graduated, professional athletes started to follow me back to my hometown, wherever I was, and said, hey, like, you're doing something different. We want to do what you're doing.
Right.
So I'd have these pro athletes start following me back, and the market created itself. So a year after I graduated college, while I was still playing, I incorporated 3D performance training and kind of created this business of saying, okay, well, for 4 months of the year, so October through January or February, I would train professional athletes when I'm not training myself.
Right.
It was too hard to go find a legitimate off-season job, because at that stage, who wants to hire somebody on in it for a good paying job?
Right.
For only 4 months at a time, and then be like, all right, cool, we're not going to see you again until next October. So it just started building on itself, and these athletes started following what we were doing. And when I was released from the Phillies in 2009, the day they handed me my release papers was the day that they offered me a contract to be one of their minor league strength coaches, and said, hey, we want to not have you as a player. We want to hire you on. But I just couldn't accept that yet. I still wanted to play. So during this kind of intermediate time of talking with my agent, do I want to play? You know, what's the best thing? Praying about it, doing whatever we could. The University of Tennessee called, and it was like midnight on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday night. And they said, hey, you know, we've got a position open. It was actually a text message. We've got a director role open here at the University of Tennessee. We know what you've been doing with your professional athletes. Would you have any interest in coming on staff with us? So it worked out that it was almost kind of placed in my lap that I had the opportunity to go to a large BCS school, go work with every sport that they had. And at the same time, being a full-time employee, you also get 9 free hours of education. So I was a full-time student, a full-time employee, full-time pay, state benefits, but I also was able to become a full-time graduate student.
Wow.
So I decided I was going to take advantage of that and finish my master's in biomechanics. So finished my master's went back in science, and had some amazing experiences. Worked with first rounders in a number of different sports who are still, either had the opportunity or have competed in the Olympics and various, Major League Baseball, NFL, PGA Tour, professional tennis, large majors, and all of these, cool things. And had a chance to be Team USA's baseball director back in 2012 and 2013.
Wow.
Working with now, Major League Baseball MVPs. And all of this started building and building and building, and met my wife, decided we were going to have kids, got married, decided we were going to have kids, and realized that life wasn't going to support being a husband at home that could be an influence.
Right.
So my dad, who was in kind of medical sales, or he was with Novartis Pharmaceuticals for 38 years, I kind of saw what that looked like and how present my dad could be in my life and still provide for a family.
Right.
So chose to dive in 2015, 2016 when I left the University of Tennessee, and I've been in medical sales ever since.
Wow. I mean, obviously medical sales has done well for you. It's allowed you to not only still follow your passion as an athlete and as a coach, as a biomechanicist, right? And still giving you a life, a living that you can take care of your family. It gives you a lot of freedom. It seems like that seems like an amazing career choice.
So I think one of the things, so when I left, the easiest transition from where I was to go into sports medicine and orthopedics, which is what I did. And I loved what I was doing. I mean, ACL reconstruction, rotator cuff repairs, labral repairs, Tommy John, Achilles ruptures, meniscal repairs, like just various things that you think of that happen either in sports or in everyday life. But one of the things that was difficult about it, not only being a business owner, but also, being fresh to parenthood, was the orthopedic world is sometimes difficult to manage time.
Right.
And, that part, most surgeries in that world are anywhere from maybe 45 minutes to maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, just kind of depend, give or take, whatever that is. And you could anticipate an hour to an hour and a half long surgery, but if the patient has poor pathology or their bone quality isn't good and something happens and there's an anchor won't sit or something happens, you can easily turn into a 3, 4, 5 hour surgery, and either your family or another doctor or another patient is waiting for you in another facility. And it just became difficult for me. That may be right for some others, but it just didn't match what we needed. So I got into eye care after about 1.5 years, 2 years of being in orthopedics, and eye care is outstanding. You can truly affect people's lives in a positive way.
Right.
But the surgeries that I'm in now take anywhere from 3 to 12 minutes long.
Oh, wow.
And so now I can see 50 surgeries before lunch, and that's all in one facility. I mean, if I need to be somewhere or support a doctor or support a patient or support a facility, it's okay because there's not a bleeding patient asleep on the table that I may need to worry about their life. And now you might see 10 cases, and then you can move on to the next facility, support the next doctor, and being able to control your schedule and know where you're going to be. It allows for much better time agility. Maybe that's the best term I can use.
Yeah, that's time agility. I think is valuable if you're trying to lead a life of value for your family as well as for your career, because life happens in intermittent moments, right? So being able to have flexibility in your schedule gives you a lot of agency in your life, which I think is something we're all kind of looking for.
Without question.
So I was thinking about what you were talking, and did you ever see this is the place you were going to wind up? Like, what was your dream versus what your reality is?
Well, I think the dream is really to be able to not trade my time for money. I think that's anyone's true dream. But and I thought that in the sports performance world, that and this is a lot of misconception, that hey, I could truly make an impactful difference on my family and those around me just by living in a gym setting.
Right.
And not to say that that's not possible and that hasn't ever happened. But that has to start at a much younger age than what I believe I did. I don't think it has to, but I think where I am in my life, it didn't match. So it's different because I feel like if I just wanted to do that, I almost forfeited, call it 7 to 11 years of my life of professional business development.
Right.
I wouldn't change my path, but by playing 4 years of professional athletics and then another 6 or 7 years of being at the college institution level, I was never just at the entrepreneurial 11-year development from the time I got out of college.
Right.
So instead of truly starting my quote unquote career at 22 years old, it was 33 years old. And I wouldn't trade my experiences, but when you look back and say, wow, I didn't realize just how much time was forfeited in business development, but I ended up getting more education. Right. And I got more experiences. And there were, some other things that would trade. So now I can look back and I know my path.
Right. Where do you see, like, what is that looking back now? I mean, because we all exist in the now, right? It doesn't matter. The past is the past. The future's the future. We're now. But knowing what you know about where you came from and this kind of, I mean, obviously you did a lot of preparation to allow the universe to carry you on a path, right? Mm-hmm. And by doing that level of preparation in your childhood of playing as an athlete, and by giving your body not just one sport but multiple sports, and if people are familiar with CrossFit, the idea of general preparedness, general athleticism, is that you should be able to do anything, and hopefully by being so broad, it gives you a good base that if you're playing a sport at a high level, sometimes injuries occur because of the nature of how you have to move for that sport. I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes it's better to have a broad knowledge of many things than it is to have only a very specific knowledge. And considering where you're at in your career, I would say you have a greater amount of flexibility than someone who just opened up a gym. I would say.
I don't disagree with that. And maybe to go back and specifically answer the question, like, hey, where did I see my path? Or how did it turn out? I think it's a truth that the social media world and the digital world, COVID, post-COVID, has dramatically changed all businesses.
Yeah, amen to that.
But I will say that in the fitness world, everybody wants the knowledge and everybody wants the right coaching, but no one really wants to pay for it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where you have to truly accept that not everyone is willing to make that investment. And I kind of look at this as saying, like, people don't view the fitness professional or the sport performance professional's career or knowledge base the way we would maybe an accountant. Right? So we don't go into a CPA's office when it's time to do our taxes and say, hey, I'm going to do my taxes this year. I know you have your form that you fill out everything, and I know that's stored on your computer. Could you just email me that? Because I think I'm going to do my taxes this year. Right? Well, then how many times do people, like in the fitness industry, like somebody will call and be like, hey, you know what? I don't really need to like come into your gym or your facility to like do the workout with you, but I know you've got all these programs like saved on your computer. Could you just email it to me? And I'll just do it at my house.
Yeah.
And it negates the whole idea of taking the time to go through the education and the experience and the things that we in the fitness or the performance world have to go through to make sure that we're adequately prescribing what's necessary. Now, there is a gray area too, and I'll get that, because are people in the fitness industries like, doctors? No, it's not like a lawyer or a doctor where like you either practice law or you practice medicine, right? You're never technically just conducting it. You're practicing it because it's an ongoing process that evolves over time.
Right.
In the fitness industry or the performance industry, you can prescribe prescribe one program to 20 people and get 20 different types of results.
Yeah.
Because everyone's makeup and genetic makeup is different. So,
right. You got different hip widths that changes the relationship to your knee and shin. And so your body mechanics are different, whatever it is that changes your body variations.
So
like,
I totally understand that idea of just being like, okay, well, it's not a concrete, this is right and this is wrong. There's always an evolutionary thing that you have to say, okay, well, it's not that you know what to do now, because most people in fitness and performance and sport, they know what to do, but then they don't know what to do when what they prescribe doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that becomes the bigger piece to the puzzle. So that's why sometimes, like, I don't mind it if people want to see my programming. I didn't invent new things.
Right.
What I ended up doing was saying, over the course of time, I found scientific and anecdotal evidence that, to me, has demonstrated the propensity to get results that look like X.
Right.
And when I don't get X, then I need to deviate from that to make sure that I can get that athlete or that client back to what that goal is. And, so that's where it does become difficult. And I decided I was going to, deviate from what I thought was the original path and say, I'm not just going to be in this fitness industry. I want to make sure I create different streams of income and still be what I would like to say is a respected, whether it's, an expert or somebody that somebody could refer to as, master, expert, whatever you want to call it in that field, because I have surpassed that 10,000 hour mark and had some cool letters and things behind my name. But at the same time, also take that knowledge and try and drive it also into a different industry and say, how can I develop my skills in something else? And that's where I could create a separate career that allows for the freedom that we as a family can enjoy the life that we would like to live.
Yeah. I mean, that's the success, right? Is that you get to live the life that you want to live, not the life that someone else has determined for you.
Now, I'll tell you, it's not perfect by any means.
Right.
Like there are still plenty of things that I would like to be better at.
Geez, high level college athlete, multi-sport athlete as a kid, went to the big leagues, came out of it, got into medical sales, have a beautiful family who I've met. They're fantastic. Your wife is a dynamo. She's an equal match to you. You have a
far beyond me. I so outkicked my coverage with her.
Well, that's always better, to rise to the level of your peers rather than constantly have to pull your peers up. So
now, and I will say, I did have an opportunity to play professional athletics, but I will never claim that I made it to the big leagues.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I never made it to the big leagues. Highest roster I was ever on was a AA roster.
Oh, okay.
But I did have an opportunity to play in some fun events. I did have some spring training big league games, but that's not the same. Like accumulating time at the big leagues, and I won't degrade that that level with me. I may have had some athleticism, but there were some people that had an amazing set of skills, and they earned the right to be there.
Yeah, totally. You still got a heck of a lot closer than I did. And on your worst day, you're still 3 times the athlete I could dream of becoming. Even when you don't train, you end up doing fairly well in a 24-hour Spartan race. Or was it 24 hours? Is that the one you did?
No. So the Spartan Games, there was an invitation.
That's right.
It was a 4-day event they would like to refer to it as, you know, their version of the CrossFit Games.
Got it.
I've never done a Spartan race in my life, so I mean, I can't claim, but kind of the way that they did it is there's a Spartan sponsored event, or kind of a sister group called Deca Fit, Deca Strong, by the kind of the two head people there is Yancey Culp and Jared Cogswell. And there was a local Deca Strong event that was hosted in Knoxville. And there was a local gym that was having basically they were having like an affiliate setup where they would host this race. And I had never heard of it. I had no idea. And they were just looking to show numbers. So they called me, not Spartan, but the local gym called and said, hey, we're just trying to get some numbers. Would you just come register and sign up and come do it? And I was like, well, sure. You know, we'll see what happens. Like, so I get back from a road trip, and I had been nursing in a kind of a messed up calf at the time. So I was like, all right, you know what? I'll go through it. I'll do what I got to do. But listen, when the music's loud and people are there and competitive juices start flowing, I was like, all right, well, we're going to get after this. And, you know, if my calf pops in the middle, we'll see what happens. And one thing led to another. And that day I set the world record in Deca Strong. And just so happened Jared Cogswell was there, and he's like, what do you do? Like, where did you come from? And he's like, you just set the world record for something we've tested over 10,000 plus athletes on. And like, how do you do this? So we've never heard of. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I just chase after my kids. And 2 weeks later, they were hosting the Spartan Games, which was a televised event, but it was hush hush. You had to sign a non-disclosure, so nobody knew about it.
Right.
And this was in the heart of 2020. So it's in the middle of COVID.
Right.
Nobody was able to do anything. And one of the contestants, so the way that they did it is they invited what they called the top 12 fittest males and females, or kind of the most well-rounded males and females individually across the globe, and flew them into Vermont at the headquarters of Joe DeSena. It's his property, and the headquarters of Spartan, and said, hey, we're going to have you guys compete for the world championship, and put $100,000 up. And one of the 12 males, either, I don't remember, I think I know who it is. They never told me. But I actually believe it's Jacob Hepner, who's he's a, multi CrossFit Games. I think he finished, his highest finish ever was either 4th or 5th in the world, just outside of the podium.
Right.
I mean, he's a phenomenal athlete, but I don't know this for sure, but I'm just guessing.
Got it.
That he either had a knee injury or got COVID. And this was 4 days before the Spartan Games. So now they drop somebody. They have nobody else. So at 11:45 p.m., 3 nights before the Spartan Games begin, I get a phone call from Spartan headquarters and said, hey, we had somebody, they're not able to come. We're trying to fill a spot. You just set the world record in an affiliated event. Would you be willing to come compete for the world championship? And I'm like, my wife and I are looking at each other like, where did this come from? And, I decided I wasn't in shape. I wasn't ready to go, and hopped on a plane 3 days later after three negative COVID tests going into the week, and said, hey, let's just fly a bike up there and see what happens.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, that's one could be tempted to call that a Mary Sue situation, which Mary Sue in fiction is someone that is just so naturally gifted that the magic happens, and they need no training, they need no mentor, they just walk into the situation and dominate.
Well,
I would have years and years and years of doing this, as a foundation. You may not have been in shape for you, but you were still pretty in shape because of all the foundation of what you put in and the way you eat and the way you take care of
I think
yourself.
that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
There were 20 plus years of 6+ hour days devoted just to athletic performance in some form or fashion. I did have, at that stage, it was probably 3 to 4 years of very minimal training.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I would say,
but you still didn't eat like
no,
someone that just swallows pizzas all the time.
Poor by any means,
right?
But there were just a number of things going on, and the deeper I've gotten into some of the medical sales, and as the kids have gotten older, it's just become more about them.
Yeah. I think we have to choose the things that we give energy to, because it doesn't matter how multi-hyphened we are or how curious we are. There's only so much energy that you can engage deeply with something, and I would say, I would make an argument that your fitness knowledge and the base of information that you have, along with your continued curiosity, because I've seen you continue to learn. Like, I've watched you get new information and then incorporate that into what you're doing, because you have a very scientific approach to your process. Having gone through it, I can speak to, you look at the symmetry in my back. You were looking at the my bilateral development, and then you were incorporating a series of unilateral movements that would encourage more bilateral symmetry, like bodybuilding, except for it wasn't bodybuilding, it was functional, um, um, intentional movements that would make my body work better as a unit for just bilateral,
more efficient. The goal would be to just make you more biomechanically efficient, so that you became more functional and more competitive at the things that you wanted to be good at.
Yeah, and it was working. I will say, the training that you engaged with, because I wanted to understand, like, all right, I came to athleticism late in life. I mean, I was not, that's not true. I came to weightlifting and gymnastics late in life. I was as a kid, I was a skateboarder. And so it was all about, pushing harder, jumping harder, doing technical things with my feet, because I'm not a very coordinated person. That's why I enjoy weightlifting. And then I had some calisthenics in the military, and that was just about performing, but I didn't know anything or do anything with my body that made me athletic, right? I just kind of existed as I was. And then as soon as I got out of the military and I was a filmmaker, an artist, I put on a lot of weight, but my mind kept telling me I was skinny and able and, flexible still, but my body was taking in a different message, because I wasn't teaching it to maintain it. I was letting entropy take over. So it was a change of direction when I got to CrossFit, and it was because I had seen a photo of myself filming these fantastic gymnasts that are doing this thing in Alpha Warrior, which strangely enough is how I met Yancey, through another mutual friend. And I was the one that named Alpha Warrior when I was part of that startup. But just being around younger, fitter people that were able to do things with their body, I couldn't do it anymore. It motivated me to want to get healthier. And what triggered that was a dream I had of a gentleman in his 80s telling me a story about his daughter, who was in her 60s. He just got her walking, and walking helped her lose weight. She became more mobile, and so on and so on. And so that triggered me to get up the next day and start walking and eating breakfast, because I normally didn't eat breakfast. Now I call it intermittent fasting, back then it was, I just eat garbage at the end of the day, because I wanted to get into the day, you know? But yeah, so I started my journey by walking, and then I started running, because I met folks from The Biggest Loser that did a run walk challenge. That was all part of the same startup group. But yeah, and that led me to, every time I traveled, I had to find a gym after I got into shape, some kind of personal healthy shape. And that somehow connected me to you, and you're still connected to a lot of the people that, you know, we went to Summer Strong that one year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's strange the connections that there are between me and you that are unacknowledged, you know, had been unacknowledged, and the folks that I was interacting with at Summer Strong. I you know what, I guess where I'm trying to take this is that intentionality in fitness and the people that we meet along the way, I am totally lost in that idea. So I don't know how to fix that. How do I bring it together?
The community, the intentionally fit community,
Yes.
it really funnels down.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that don't understand the difference between working out and training.
Yes.
Working out is simply activity.
Yep.
But those who are intentionally fit in whatever that is, it doesn't have to be that they're fit according to a certain definition.
Right.
But it could be that they are in shape for golf, or they are in shape for a multi-domain, something like a triathlon,
right.
Or they could totally just be, they could be in shape for a tactical race.
Correct.
Like,
yeah.
It doesn't matter, but all of those different pieces that we just talked about, they're all gearing what they're doing towards training.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference then becomes training is right. Working out is just activity, but training incorporates a goal and a process.
Oh, yeah.
And
there you go.
And those that actually follow that process and be intentionally fit in whatever direction that is, that community becomes very small. And that's where all of us start to have these like-minded ideas. We start to meet like-minded people. You talk about Yancey, we talk about Summer Strong and the entire Sorinex and weightlifting and strength community.
Highland Games, you know,
the Highland Games, CrossFit athletes, and all of these people are not just, they're not just doing activity for activity.
Mm-hmm.
They're all doing it intentionally for a purpose, for an end goal. And that end goal, though, still might be, when you look at whether, again, we'll use CrossFit athletes, like, hey, they're multi-domain, multi-load, multi-distance, and they're still be getting better at all of those different pieces to make their overall fitness level better. And it's still an intent.
Yeah, I would, you know, that's something that I'm coming to understand more and more of, that intent and understanding outcomes. That, you know, if your outcome is to be the best in the world at something, right? Your intent has to be at every step of the way, how am I going to be that, right? So if what I'm doing isn't getting me there, then I need to intentionally change direction to reorient to the end goal. But, you know, when you set a goal that's that specific, you're going to have to, you know, on any given day, a champion can be second place, you know, injury, factors on completely outside your control. It doesn't matter how much effort you put in on the day of competition. The day of competition is a timestamp of now. So the difference between being a champion and not being a champion is 1% of the effort that you've had to put in, but it's the determining factor of whether you get the title, right? And please correct me if I say anything wrong, because you know that I only have a gold medal in deadlifting, and it's not that impressive.
I don't think there's any real correction in that. I think what people may need, not that they may need to understand, but it's a very hard, sometimes it's a very hard concept to accept, in that true elite level of performance does not involve balance.
Yes.
There isn't balance there. If you are going to be a true champion, something is going to have to be sacrificed.
Right.
And whether it's your friendships, whether it's, family, that's why it's so important to find people that are aligned if you want to be a champion. Because whether it's going to bed at the right time, whether it's sacrificing the fact that, you're at a sporting event and you're not going to have the foods that are available at that sporting event.
Right.
Whether it's not going out and, having certain, an alcoholic beverage or, whatever that looks like, or, hey, no, I need to stick around here and I need to do this mobility because there cannot be wasted time.
Right.
But it affects other pieces. And truly being a champion in whatever does something has to be sacrificed, and there's not balance.
Right.
And
the idea of that is you're sacrificing a balance to achieve this elusive thing, right? Yeah. So I totally get that. I understand that in a deep way now, because what my goal was to be in myself is to be a great artist, right? That's since I was a small child, I had defined what I was going to be. I wanted to be a scientist, I wanted to fly, and I wanted to be an artist, right? So those were three things that I had said I wanted to be. I have actualized all of those things early, and then I wanted to be a great father. And my children, I think, bear that out. Like, they are who they are. They're unafraid to be who they are. They're unafraid to question the things around them. They've learned their lessons their own way. They are 100% their own people. And I, as a father, I think I'm successful, but as a father, I still want them at home. But they live there in Knoxville. They're closer to you than they are to me at this point. So
it is kind of ironic that it works that way, that we actually met each other in Greenville, South Carolina. I moved to Knoxville, and it just so happens your kids are here.
Yeah. Which I love coming up there and training with you at your facility. You have a heck of a wonderland there to improve oneself. So I highly recommend that if anyone gets an invitation, they go. But yeah, so long story short, the goals that you want out of life need to be in alignment with the effort you're wanting to make. I think that is something we've both learned in our different paths that we've gone. Does that sound about right?
Oh, no, I think that's spot on.
Okay. Yeah. Because I often, when I wanted to train like a real athlete, and you put me through your programming, it wasn't the programming that was getting me to the place. It was my effort and the fact that you believed in me, right? Like, you gave me your magic, and I wanted to do something with that. And unfortunately, because of COVID, I didn't get the chance to take on that competition. And, I was really beat down by the end of all that exercise. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
so then that goes and proves my point, though.
Right.
That really it's becoming the champion or becoming the best that you can be isn't really about the hour or hour and a half or 2 hours, whatever it is that you're putting in the gym. It's
Right.
the other 22 to 23 hours that you do away from the gym. Like,
Right.
what do those foods look like? What does your sleep look like? What does the recovery modality look like?
Right.
All of the timing of your meals and all of these things. And you're like, wow, there's way more mental focus that has to happen instead of just that hour or two that I'm trying to focus on the training itself.
Right. You know, it's almost, I'm coming to an understanding about intention just in this conversation with you. Um, the the reason why you achieve something through all the hours of effort, you know, all the reps, is because your mind has to be so singularly focused on it that it becomes that's all you can see. You get tunnel vision for it, and then you make it happen because not only are you doing the work, but you're seeing yourself where you want to be, right? And you're going, okay, I really want to do this fun thing with my family, but that is a drag on this point, this where I'm trying to get to. So I have to sacrifice that. Now, am I willing to sacrifice that? I wasn't willing to sacrifice my family because you know, I had experienced things where people had not sacrificed for me growing up. And I wanted to make sure that my children both saw that you can put in the effort, you can be successful in the things you wanted to do, you know, work ethic, all that. But I wanted them to know that I was there for them and they were my priority. And I was doing that while traveling a lot, and everything else. So
it's hard to do.
it is. It's hard to both be present and not present. And that was probably my personal struggle is I was always thinking about what I needed to do to take care of my family. And sometimes I was not focused on the fact that I was right there with them and that's what they needed me to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a constant battle of being physically present, but not mentally present.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Intent and presence are the two themes I'm pulling out of our conversation right now.
I tell you what, one thing that I'll tell you that I try and do I try and do a really good job of being so mentally present and in the moment that like I'll forget to like take videos or take pictures or do these things because I'm so locked into like my son or my daughter's like soccer game or baseball game or gymnastics or tennis or whatever, that I'll forget to take these pictures or videos or whatever because I'm just so laser focused on watching them do it and trying to enjoy the moment that I forget that I do want to rewatch those moments later and that I should be filming. So
yeah, but I, as a photographer and as a filmmaker, I wanted to capture a lot of stuff of my kids growing up. But also there is a value kind of like in that Ben Stiller movie. Oh, it was a remake. I can't think of it right now. But anyway, Sean Penn plays a photographer that Ben Stiller idolizes, and he's out to take a photo of a snow leopard. And he's got his camera, he's set up, he's in the Himalayas, starving for days. And instead of taking the shot, he just lives in the moment with seeing this elusive creature, right? And I think that you got to have the balance of those things. You got to be in the moment so that they know you're there. And then every once in a while, you step out of it, you become the observer, and then you're able to capture the memory of it. Because there's been a number, there was a wrestling match my son was in. And the kid that I'm going to talk about ended up on Tosh.0.
Huh.
Yeah. So his teammate was wrestling and he got caught in a figure four, you know, with, you know, the guy caught him, you know, around behind the head. It's totally illegal move. And then squeezed hard with his feet on his solar plexus, and it triggered projectile vomiting.
Oh.
Right. So this kid who's a fantastic wrestler, but he just got wrapped up in this, and it was a trick of hitting the right nerve on his gut with the heel of the guy that was squeezing on him, and he literally just all over the mat.
Oh.
But the kid had such a great attitude about it. Later, he was laughing about it. He goes, it's not like I could have stopped it. It just happened.
Yeah.
In sports, there's a lot of those kinds of things. There's the other end story I heard by a power lifter, and he was thankful that he had big glutes because it made sure that his singlet didn't catch anything that might have happened under pressure. But sorry, long story short, I didn't get video of that experience, but someone else did and put it on Tosh.0. But I get to remember the fact that this kid went through this and see the attitude that he had. He just had such a light hold on that. Personally, I would have been focused on the fact that I just puked in front of everybody and would have died of embarrassment. But this kid, he was like, yeah, whatever, it happened. And was excited to have it broadcast to the world. So attitude, intent, yeah, man, and presence. I don't think you're going to regret not having photos because the memories are there. Well, I got to
do both. I have to make sure I do both.
I think so. I mean, nowadays, how can you not with a phone? You always have a camera.
I can't just blink my eyes and make it come out as Polaroids.
Well, if you learn how to draw, you could probably do it.
I'm a terrible artist.
Well,
so I can't do that.
Then I can say
my family and I will play Pictionary, and they're like, "Whatever you do, don't let Herman draw. He can't do it." Like my 6-year-old son is better at it than I am.
Well, there you go. Maybe the athletic gene has skipped a generation, and your inner artist is going to be expressed in your son.
Who knows?
Well, I've had a fantastic time pontificating on your very worthy information, and I know that we're going to probably have another conversation soon. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you're working on?
So, what we've got kind of 2 projects. Number 1 is part of 3D Performance.
Mm-hmm.
That is, we just launched a how to run the 60-yard dash. It's a baseball driven kind of 30-minute how to. Kind of the idea is people who are looking for college scholarships in the baseball arena. There's lots of things on how to run the 40-yard dash for football, but for baseball, we run the 60-yard dash. So it's like, hey, if you're going to go take this test, if you're going to go take the SAT or the ACT in academics, you're going to take a prep course. Mm-hmm. Well, this is kind of like a video prep course on how to run the 60-yard dash. So how do you give yourself an extra 10th or 2 or 3 that might ultimately help you sign a contract or get a scholarship offer? So we just launched that, which is actually really fun. But the project that we're kind of finishing up right now is the audiobook version of something we've already launched. Mm-hmm. So Bobby Bramhall, Nate Headley, Ted Whitmer, and myself wrote a book called Who's On First. And the idea of this book is all about little leagues to the big leagues and what to think about during recruiting processes and travel ball and nutrition and strength training. And when the book was launched, within the first 12 hours, it was on a Barnes & Noble bestseller list.
Wow.
And we're finishing the audio book version of this. And we're really excited for kind of the larger launch of both hardback, paperback, and the audio version that should be available here within the next probably month or 2. And then there'll be a large launch in December where Perfect Game USA will kind of have a booth set up with Jerry Ford, the initial kind of like owner, originator of Perfect Game. And I can't wait to talk more about, the book and what it can offer to parents and players and how to set yourself up for what could be you know, a game changer as far as offering opportunities in academics and athletics.
That's amazing. I would just say thank you so much for sharing that. I'm excited to learn more about the book. I hope that you and your co-writers will join me on Gnosis to share with me the knowledge that you guys have. And I'm just excited that you're killing it the way you're killing it. And I think it was a fantastic use of my time to have a conversation with you. And I hope that it's been a valuable use of your time to have a conversation with me.
Likewise, I can't wait to get some of the other authors on here. We can talk more about the book. And as always, Trinity, it's a pleasure talking with you, and I look forward to doing it again soon.
All right. Awesome. Thank you very much.